Sli, apart from the evidence from the data expert, also heard from a friend of Muzikaise, Malepane. What did his testimony reveal? And then can you expand on that data expert's testimony?
Well, we're officially in the second week of the trial against Ntuthuko Shoba, and yesterday what we saw were witnesses that were brought by the state essentially to corroborate the evidence that's been given by the convicted killer Muzikaise Malepane. And the first witness was actually a trustee from the complex in which Ntuthuko Shoba resides, who confirmed that he was the one who handed over the CCTV footage, which shows Malepane at the complex gate picking up Tshegofatso Pule on the evening of the 4th of June 2020, and he was pretending to be an Uber driver. So he confirmed that yes, that footage was handed over to the police, and also confirmed that Shoba had actually asked for a copy for himself. Next up on the stand, Tapuma, was the friend of the convicted killer Muzikaise Malepane, who Malepane had said last week was with him on the day of the murder, and can corroborate that during the afternoon, Shoba had actually come to Malepane's home and to discuss some of those details around the plot to have Pule murdered. So what we heard from Muzi Kumalo was the fact that they were hanging out at Malepane's home during the afternoon on the 4th of June, and that Malepane kept on getting a series of calls that he wasn't answering. One of those that he did answer, though, he said during the end of that conversation, which means I'm coming, and then he went outside of his gate. They were going to get some more beverages, he says, and that when they left the gates, they then noticed that Malepane was standing next to a Polo, and he was actually able to remember a little bit of the registration number, as well as some of the specs of the car, saying that it really stood out to him because it was a beautiful car, but also because he didn't recognize the person in the vehicle, only learning afterwards that it was Ntuthuko Shoba. So a lot of the evidence we heard yesterday, was to just corroborate a lot of the testimony said by the convicted killer. During the last hour of proceedings, we then had the data expert from the South African Police Services, Warrant Officer Andries van Tonder, taking to the witness box, and he has just begun corroborating some of, or should I say unpacking rather, the cell phone records that are before the courts. We have cell phone records from Tshegofatso Pule's phone, as well as Shoba, as well as Malepane. So we've only just begun with his testimony, but he was already able to tell the courts that on the 4th of June, the phones of all three of them, Pule, Shoba, as well as Malepane, could all be found to have been used in that Florida area. So we're just only in the beginning stages of really trying to unpack the cell phone records. But I think what the state wants to prove here with those records is that they're not just relying on Malepane's evidence when it comes to trying to secure a conviction in this matter.
And what we have heard from Officer van Tonder is that there was no activity on Tshegofatso Pule's phone in the evening, which is crucial because of something you just mentioned, that Malepane was posing as an Uber driver, and it's claimed that she had called the Uber.
Exactly. So we know that on that evening, according to Ntuthuko Shoba, he says that Tshegofatso Pule was the one who said to him that I've actually organized my own ride home, and that he had nothing to do with that. But the fact that during those 3 hours when Tshegofatso Pule was at Shoba's place, and this is between about 7:15 as well as 10 o'clock at night, before Malepane arrived, there was no activity, nothing was picked up by the cell phone networks in terms of her particular phone having either requested an Uber, made a phone call, nothing of the sort. So now it brings into question Ntuthuko Shoba's statement around what happened that evening and who actually called Malepane to come to the house. And I do remember, actually, in fact, during the bail proceedings, the state prosecutor also pointed out to the court to say that the telephone calls between Shoba and Malepane on the 4th of June amounted to around 23 times. They called each other more than 23 times on the 4th of June. So we're still in those beginning stages of just trying to really coordinate and see exactly how the conversations unfolded between Ntuthuko Shoba as well as Malepane and Tshegofatso Pule herself. We know that later in the week we are possibly going to hear from the investigating officer as well as probably an expert from the cell phone, the network providers, in terms of these cell phone records, but also the state saying that the defense rather saying that they are waiting to see the complete list of the witnesses that the state is going to bring forward before deciding if Ntuthuko Shoba himself will also be taking the stand.
All right, Lee, thank you so much for following this trial for us.